Good afternoon. Today is August 30th, 2016. You're in room 1010. We are here today on one very special item. This is a special meeting of the Energy and Environment Committee. Mr. Prieto, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Very good. We have a quorum, and we will go ahead and take up item number one, Mr. Prieto.
Certainly. Item number one relates to Board of Water and Power Commissioners' report relative to the appointment of David H. Wright as General Manager of the Department of Water and Power.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wright. Come on up. How are you today?
Good, thank you. How are you doing?
We're doing okay, I think. So listen, thank you so much for being here today. Congratulations on your candidacy to being the permanent general manager. I know that you are interim right now, and I am very excited about all of the possibilities in front of the utility under your leadership. So can you just give us a little sense for what you think the top three priorities are for the utility? Obviously, there is so much that needs to be done, but if you had to just pick three things that you think are at the foremost of the utility's agenda, what would they be?
So three things. First, and one of my top issues that I'm really championing is customer service at every aspect, not just the phone calls, but every time a customer comes to DWP and needs anything, that they become our top priority. Doesn't always mean the customer is going to get the answer that they perfectly want, but I've always found if you talk to customers and you say, we can respond this way, we can respond that, it's an interaction, it's a one-on-one interpersonal discussion, or sometimes now via email, that we can communicate with our customers and meet their needs by answering their questions or resolving their issues. So truly, one is customer service. The next is implementing all of the items that we presented as part of the rate plan. We have a financial plan now for 5 years. It includes a number of different aspects that we need to attain: infrastructure replacement, increase in resources, financial responsibility, increased technology utilization. We need to now implement those, move forward, and essentially continue to bring the utility under the previous several general managers into a more current, a more planned process of meeting the goals of that rate plan. And then finally, succession planning. We truly have an issue with our bench strength, and it has to do more with what was going on 10 and 15 years ago, a recession, deregulation, a number of things that all kind of work together that every utility is facing, and that is we've got a lot of people retiring, and we've got a bench that we need to train, improve, educate, invest in essentially, so that we have the next generation of leaders ready to go really fast.
And, on that point, the last couple of years, it's the first time that the utility in their integrated resource plan has put human capital as one of the resources that needs to be in the IRP. And if you look at headlines of 15 years ago, back then we had about a third of the workforce at the utility eligible for retirement as well. And so it seems to be a persistent issue in terms of succession and making sure that we have a warm handoff of issues. So I think that a lot of attention obviously needs to be paid to that particular area. I've had the chance to look over your CV and the different things that you've done, understanding that the utility is a very significant part of the city's success and obviously a very complicated system. Help me understand a little bit about some of the qualifications that you bring to the utility. Obviously, you're more than qualified to serve as our general manager, but what do you think some of the more pressing sort of traits are going to have to be for you and the utility to be exercised in the course of your ascension to general manager?
Yeah, sure. As you know, I was working in Riverside for about 25 years, and I have a strong background in the water and power side of utility operations. So that's given me a real strong awareness of the overall utility issues. But starting as a CFO, I also know you can't do everything because there's not a never-ending supply of money. So the ability to balance the priorities of what we need to be doing, also with the resources that we have, the multi-year issues that we face, such as, again, additional renewable resources. We need to be obtaining those every year. We need to figure out what's the most cost-effective, what also is the best for the city of LA, what our customers need, all the different customer classifications, if you will, because there's a number of different ones. What a residential customer might want isn't the same as what a small business might want, isn't the same as a large industrial customer. So a lot of that background is absolutely applicable to LADWP, but probably one of the more important items is I've worked with LADWP staff, mostly their general managers or assistant general managers, for almost 25 years through our joint project agencies. SCAPA. Yeah,
You were the head of, was that correct?
I was the chair of SCAPA and the chair of the CMUA. So have literally spent a lot of time working, some from the outside mostly, but Marcy, myself, LADWP, we all sat around a table, what are we going to do with this asset? What about this transmission line? What about this investment? What about this resource? So we've spent a lot of time working together, so of a strong awareness of LADWP from the outside and now for 18 months from the inside.
Great. Well, I think that sort of particular perspective, the partnerships that LADWP enjoys with SCAPA, and although not completely on the same page with CMUA sometimes because I think our scale, I think that's going to bring to bear a lot of experience, obviously, on what the utility needs and as it moves forward. So one of the things that I think is absolutely pressing is the situation that we have at Aliso Canyon. And I think we've been lucky in part because of Mother Nature and not having terrible heat waves this summer. But we're coming in on winter, and the chance for curtailment is still there because of the supply situation that we have at Aliso Canyon. I, like anybody else, want to see a fossil-free mixture of fuels, and I think that's maybe one day with technology and innovation within our grasp. But in the short term, we've dodged a bullet so far, and we've been very lucky, and I think the ratepayer is unaware of it. What does the winter look like from your perspective for the utility, and how are we preparing?
So we have looked and done some strong analysis for the winter, and for this winter, things look okay. I do want to step back 1 month. Here's kind of a really good general rule you can think of. There's a heat wave usually 1 week in July, 1 week in August, 1 week in September. So the one in July, everybody says it's never been this hot so early in the summer. And the one in September, they go, it's so hot so late in the year. So, but that's in general what we face. So we have September. So I'm not breathing my sigh of relief until maybe Halloween because I'm a worrier. But when we move this year into the winter, things look okay. But this is one of those we need to look year by year. We did, as you said, have a very cooperative summer. We have not had a hot summer, and we, usually, again, there's another kind of term, 1 in 10. Often look what is the worst year that it could be every 10 years, and that's what you need to plan to, because who knows if next summer is going to be, 100 degrees every day. But in the short run, things look okay. We do have to look for a long-run transition off Aliso. And when I say long run, I just mean it's not 2 years. It's multiple years, how to scale that back as we're scaling up other things like battery storage or other renewable type energy storage facilities. And that doesn't happen overnight. As you know, most projects are multi-100 million or billion-dollar projects. Billion, it doesn't usually get too many in that range, but they're very large projects, and they're not done overnight because a great deal of analysis is put in place for that.
Along with the sort of the heat, we have, I think, done a fairly good job in the city of Los Angeles communicating the necessity for conservation as it relates to water. And depending on where you are in California, if you're on the western side of the Sierras, I think folks are beginning to forget that there was a drought, or is a drought, rather. If you're in the eastern Sierras, where our LA aqueduct flows to Los Angeles from, folks are keenly aware that there is a drought. Understanding that our job in part is education and making sure that the narrative is communicated about conservation, The other part is making sure that if we are given the gift from the gods of water and rainfall, how it is do we capture it and store it? And in the San Fernando Valley, I know that you're very aware that the San Fernando Basin is the, I think, single most biggest opportunity for the city of Los Angeles to be able to capture, retain, and then eventually distribute water. It's just to remind you how it is that we have so much riding on conservation, Prop 1, getting our fair share from the state, making sure that we do as best as we can to get the basin up and running to its full potential. It's something that's very important to certainly me and I think all of us who have talked so much about conservation and the drought. So I would just want to sort of continue to sort of sow that seed if I could with you. The last thing that I'd like to ask you is, you know, we are, I think, on the verge of, if the voters give us the authority, to change our governance structure at the utility. And I think that's a real opportunity for us to figure out how to bring more of the decision-making closer aligned with the needs of the ratepayer. And I think that's going to be a very delicate dance, and you, if everything goes well here today and in the council, will be the person that's going to be doing some of those negotiations. You know, in addition to everything that you've seen us speak to about governance, I think it's really important for us to make sure that we figure out how to really fortify the role that the ratepayer advocate has with the utility. And I think that is something that has been very well done and executed with General Manager Edwards, and I think that there's a real opportunity to expand upon that. So not so much a question, so much as a desire and a wish. Mr. Blumenfield, do you have any questions for our candidate, Mr. Wright?
Well, we had a good chance to talk earlier. I got most of my questions answered. Just, you know, what is the right amount of time we're going to have with you?
You know, I'd like to work like another 8.5 years. Now, that's, you know, and I shouldn't say that. I'm just, you know, you have that birthday in mind where it's like, I need to stop working at that birthday, and that's 8.5 years away. So I'm planning on staying around for the long run. I like managing utilities. I did it in Riverside. I had a great time in Las Vegas learning about what other states think about how California utilizes their water that comes from the Colorado River. I like doing this, and I frankly like people. So you know, I'm going to try to stay around as long as you'll have me.
Great. I'm excited about it. We've had a good conversation. I've gotten to know you. The nice thing is you're not a unknown commodity. You're coming to us, having been in the system, and we've all gotten to know you a little bit, and so I think you'll do great, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Farrell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like Mr. Blumenfield, we had a good sit down, and you answered virtually all of my questions, and so I think it'd be great if you could stay 8 years. We want to get ahead of ourselves here, you know, but we need some longevity in your position clearly. For the obvious reasons, and I forget how much turnover there's been in the last 10 years, but there have been about as many general managers on average for each year. So I look for longevity, and just I think with your background, especially Las Vegas, Riverside, areas that aren't exactly abundant in water, and you, I think you understand climate change and our needs, especially as we are basically now living with 24/7 drought, and it might just be a whole generation of that, or an indefinite existence that we have here in LA. And so one of the things that I work on a lot is Los Angeles River, our parks, and I'm more focused on the water side and gray water and recycled water and even groundwater. And we're being very creative with how to put water back in the Silver Lake Reservoir, for example. That's a real hot topic in my district as that project starts being completed toward January, maybe February. And then just how to keep our parks facilities that actually need grass, how we keep that grass watered, but not with potable water. So I want to do all I can to help push along our gray water systems, our purple pipes, and possibly utilize water from the LA River that's already been recycled, reuse. So I want to really work with you and continue working with the LADWP on these issues, both on this committee and then in Arts Parks, and do all I can to work with you and the department to sort of help get us to that next level so that we become known as a city of water conservation and water reuse. And I think we're headed in that direction. And I just think your world of experience, your professional experience, talk about succession planning. I have a hunch that Marcy knew what she was doing when she brought you aboard 18 months ago. Kind of, maybe the rest of us didn't necessarily know, but I think it was a wise choice in terms of her own succession, because I can think of no better candidate than you right now with what we need. So I'm very happy to support your permanent appointment as general manager and look forward to working with you and the whole department in the coming years. And who knows, maybe it'll be 8.5.
Maybe 9.
Maybe, maybe 9. Maybe we won't want to let you go, and that'd be great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Perez?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm also optimistic that you'll be around for the long haul, but I'm just curious, do you have an explanation for why we've had so many really qualified, good people with great backgrounds that have come on board and only stayed a few years? Do you have a sense of why that happens?
I had the sense of outside looking in for a while, and there seemed to be very, very candidly some items that were taking priority over just managing a utility first. No matter what general manager is here, you've got to be able to manage thousands of people towards the goal of basic services. And I know some of the individuals that came in tremendous backgrounds, but maybe not in the utility area of direct management of individuals. And I saw that change several years ago, especially with the addition of Ron Nichols, Marcy Edwards. One of the things she told me when she brought me on essentially to be COO was, I need someone that knows how a utility runs, because it is unusual. It does get very complex. And I don't know if that's the reason, but there was a lot of turnover, and I'll tell you the employees felt that, and I'm really appreciative and impressed by the employees' level of dedication of trying to work with not knowing. I told someone this, you didn't know if the person that hired you, general manager, was going to be here when you started work a month later. And imagine operating in that situation. So not completely sure, but I will tell you that it's been longer when there have been some individuals that truly know, okay, here's some of those details in operating a utility, and here's some of the issues that field group, that team working on replacing power, fixing a main might be facing, or customer service. And the only thing really that I see is it seemed to work better when somebody had a strong background in utility management.
Although even people like Ron and Marcy left much more quickly than I think we expected.
Yeah.
So hopefully that won't be the case with you. Hopefully you'll stick around for the time period that you're hoping. I know my colleague to my right mentioned climate change. What's your level of concern about climate change?
Tremendously concerned about climate change, and really concerned about how do we implement systems to deal with climate change. And I've always been a big believer, whether you think climate change is happening or not, it's irresponsible not to plan for essentially some of the worst circumstances that might deal with you providing power, providing anything in an environmentally responsible way. It's why you talked about 24/7 drought. We got to plan for those years where there's no water, and really those years, 7 years into a drought when there's no water. It's why the spreading grounds in Tahunga was such an amazing, fantastic project. 50 years from now, we'll have resolved all the power stuff, I hope sooner than that. Power, whatever we needed to do for a transition to renewables, it'll be done. There'll be things finished. But we need water as much as we have now to serve the population in 50 years and 100 years, and as long as there are people. So I love those permanent long-term projects with groundwater because it's a way for us to store our own water and not have to rely on Mother Nature somewhere else, but truly resiliency. And the same thing with renewable energy, helping combat what the effects of climate change, the effects of long periods of climatic extremes. Even if it comes back, we've got a period of decades now where things have been, the temperature has been rising. Let's figure out how to combat that.
Now we've had a lot of technological breakthroughs like battery storage and other things. Do you think there's a possibility to get the utility completely off fossil fuels in the next 10 years using the new technologies?
We are going to do our best, but 10 years is a short time frame in the utility industry. But what I really like is, as part of our integrated resource plan, we now are studying each round that we go through that every 2 years, how we get 100% off of fossil fuel. How do we get 100% renewables? And that study is what is really the most important thing, so we can see, here's a plan, and maybe in 2 more years we have to triple rates. But in 10 more years, we might not have to impact rates that much at all. So we've got an ongoing study of how we can get off fossil fuel, what it's going to take, and that gives us that foundation for discussion, which I think is the most important thing. We've got the analysis. Now let's just discuss what we do, our strategy, our plan, our timing, all of those items, which we haven't done before. So that 100% renewable scenario is a fantastic move forward to let us analyze and review that and discuss that.
And also we're looking at spending some big money on water issues. So how do you feel local water projects versus the tunnel projects that have been proposed?
So a little bit of background. Riverside was 100% groundwater. And we learned, and I learned especially, the closer it is to you, if it's water, the better, because it's more accessible. One of the reasons I went to Vegas was when the opportunity presented itself, I thought, okay, this is all an imported water resource. How interesting to learn something I hadn't quite known about. And then I loved learning a different state's perspective. They don't really love California and the other states for the amount of imported water we utilize. And with the Colorado River, that's one of our resources, not all, going down, we do need to invest in conveyance systems, but more importantly, we need to invest in the ability to store as much water locally as we can, because you can build a huge conveyance system, but if the resource isn't at the other end, great, you have a tunnel that was really costly with no water at the other end. So it doesn't mean you don't do it, because we still need to look at every resource we have and how to get it here, but it's local groundwater storage as our primary factor to try and keep ourselves, with a maximum amount of resources we can.
And that's exactly my concern. We build the tunnels, but we find there's not enough water for that to be a great resource for it once we've done it. What do you think the general financial condition is of the utility? How are we doing?
With the rate plan that was recently approved, that for the first time in a long time gives staff certainty for more long-term planning. How much infrastructure replacement can we plan each year? How much in contracts can we let out? What major projects, what smaller projects can we do? Truly, that provides us that financial health that we need and truly allows us to move forward with all of the projects that we proposed as part of that rate plan. So financially, with that, we're going to be okay over the next 5 years.
And I know you're very customer service focused. According to J.D. Powers, we're not. I think we've been rated the worst large utility for the last few years. Can you guarantee that we come out of that and move up in the rankings?
I can guarantee we're going to come out of that. And what I would love to come give you the presentation. J.D. Powers ranks customer service 1/3 of what it ranks billing or corporate citizenship, which even the definition of that's a little gray. I'd like to show you how J.D. Powers rankings don't really match a current utility of this day. It matches a utility I worked at 30 years ago. There are some new rankings which show customer service to the level that it should be evaluated. So when I say this, it's their level of attention to customer service on their rankings is like this much. And I don't understand that because my belief on how much you should rely on customer service for rankings is like that much. So I'd love to walk you through that because it's really interesting to see, wow, you know, that we're doing fantastic in customer service and billing and response in all those areas that J.D. Power doesn't provide any weight on. So it's a really intriguing. So I will bring, and I would like to, if you'll ask me each year, to bring all of how we're doing on surveys and improving customer service, improving billing, improving accountability, and all those items that are the most important than perhaps the ranking weightings that J.D. Power do. But I'll tell you, we're meeting with J.D. Power next month, and I'm going to tell them, you need to look at how you weight some of these different issues because they might not be matching customer needs. So a long answer to say, you bet we're going to be improving in every area we can.
And maybe at some point we should get together and chat about that.
Sure.
One last question. We have an environmentally preferred purchasing policy and a good food purchasing policy. I don't know how you feel about implementing those. I don't think DWP has fully implemented them to date. And I think our bills are printed on virgin paper from the Philippines where rainforests are being torn down for wood. Have we looked at those issues and can we turn that around?
About a year ago, we shifted to the ability to use 30% recycled paper in our billings. And part of that had to do with the printer. We had to find a paper that matched the quality that the printer could process. And guess the great thing is quality recycled paper has moved up, and we should be at 100% recycled or as close to it in the very near future. So we take that environmentally responsible purchasing effort wherever we can and move it forward and make sure it works, and staff moved forward, and we're now moving in that direction with recycled paper content in the bills.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
All right, we've got some public comment. Thank you, Mr. Wright. If you could just sit aside for a second. John Howland, take a seat there in the audience there. Michael Drennan, Alex Davis. For starters, come on up.
Good afternoon. I'm John Howland with the Central City Association. I'll be brief. CCA has a long history of working with LADWP. We're very happy with that relationship, but we're also not afraid to oppose the department initiatives. We believe those are wrong. We've applauded the work Marcy Edwards and her staff, including David Wright, have done in the past year in reaching out to the business community and to the city as a whole to make the case for the power and water rate increases. CCA believes that David Wright will continue these policies and continue the much more transparent and forward-looking initiatives that the department has begun. Further, his work history shows that he can successfully manage a utility and a municipal utility at that, he says, with great difficulty. CCA supports this appointment and urges you to move this recommendation forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Michael Drennan, and I currently have the privilege of serving as the president of the Board of Directors for the Council for Watershed Health. The council was formed 20 years ago by former DWP Commissioner and environmental leader Dorothy Green and a group of committed water agency partners seeking to advance greater collaboration and solutions to complex problems. And ever since that time, we've been partners with DWP, LA Sanitation, County Public Works, and many other stakeholders to advance the health and sustainability of our region's watersheds. I'm here today to enthusiastically support the appointment of David Wright as General Manager. As an experienced utility professional, we've heard that he's got 30 years of experience, most recently as the Chief Operating Officer of the department. So he's got an insider's understanding, but brings an outsider's perspective to lead the department. His focus on customer service, replacing aging infrastructure, and continuing the transformation of both water and power supplies are the right priorities to create an even more responsive department and sustainable, resilient city. We look forward to continuing our partnership under Mr. Wright's leadership and encourage you to support his appointment. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, committee members, chairman. My name is Alex Davis. I'm the Legislative Affairs Manager at the Valley Industry and Commerce Association, VICA, and we are very excited and enthusiastic to be here supporting Mr. Wright's permanent appointment to the head of the LADWP. We believe his long experience leading public utilities will serve all of Los Angeles well. Thank you.
Very good. We've got Tony Wilkinson and Sarah Rascon. Ms. Rascon?
Good afternoon. Sarah Rascon, Policy Manager at the LA Area Chamber of Commerce. And on behalf of over 1,600 business organizations, with many of the businesses in the LADWP service area, the LA Chamber supports the appointment of David Wright as General Manager for the nation's largest public utility. As a CEO, we believe David has firsthand experience within the utility customer service, billing system, and beyond. We're confident he'll be a leader for DWP. In addition, he is a utility veteran, as we heard today, and we look forward to working with him for positive reform at the utility while ensuring competitive rates and unparalleled customer service. We're thrilled to support David's appointment and look forward to working with him on behalf of the business community.
Good afternoon, Mr. Wilkinson.
Good afternoon. Hi, Chief, from my neighborhood. I'm Tony Wilkinson from Panorama City, and I head the Neighborhood Council DWP MOU organization. I'd like to tell a story about why I support Mr. Wright for General Manager. First of all, when he was assigned to take over the customer service fiasco after the billing problems, he did it with good cheer, which first of all is a big positive. And then when it came to settle the customer suit, the class action suit, normally the class action lawyers get a whole bunch of money and they want to make certain the members of the class get handled. But the person sued, here the DWP wants to make certain they have as little responsibility and cost as possible. What did this man do? He got a settlement that assures adequate customer service staffing for years to come, which was the core problem for much of the unhappiness. And so I think that indicates by action, here's a guy who puts customer service first.
Very good. Great. Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson, Ms. Rascon. Thank you so much, colleagues. Unless you have a need for extensive debate, I'd be happy to move that we affirm the DWP Commissioner's recommendation to nominate Mr. David H. Wright as General Manager of the Department of Water and Power.
So moved. Second.
Very good. Mr. Blumenfield seconds, and it's unanimous. Congratulations. We'll see you in the full City Council. Now you've got those folks to worry about. There are no general public comment cards. We are adjourned.